Hey guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. I'm at the Mecum Auto Auction in Kissimmee, Florida, walking around and of course being a big fan of the C4 generation of the Corvette because I did once upon a time, a long time ago, actually own one. I came across this. This is a 1988 Corvette Challenge race car. But before we get into this C4 race car, let's talk about what's going on here. So in 1988, Chevrolet really wanted to keep pushing forward with the C4 and proving it as a true, not only American sports car, but also a race car out on the racetracks around the country. So what they did was they came up with this engine option on the spec sheet called BP9. You check that off, that's what you just purchased. So basically what it was, the Corvette Challenge series was a race series that raced from 88 to 89, so only 2 years, 1988, 1989. It followed the bigger racing series. So think IndyCar, think IMSA sports car racing. And what it was a sports car support series to race with those other events. And they got not only big names behind the wheel of the cars, but they got the cars themselves out there. Now this is just one of 56 1988 Corvettes. And what's interesting is that for the most part, they're stock. They came with a sealed L98 5.7 liter V8, which was the tuned port fuel injected engine that wound up in your street going C4 Corvette. Totally stock, 235 horsepower. Of course, they made adjustments for the racetrack. There's a race cage from the factory in there. It's got these special Dimag, made by a company called Dimag, magnesium wheels to help quicken up that steering. Suspension was kind of tweaked on a little bit, but other than that, essentially, you're in a C4 standard Corvette. I mean, you could even technically nowadays get one of these registered through the back door and drive it on the road and have a race car on the road. But what's wonderful is that seeing it here, this is something super duper rare. So I want to find out. Chevrolet has made a lot of special editions. You know, we talk about the 1LE option, we talk about Copo Camaros and everything else. Is this Corvette Challenge race car one of the most outstanding performance Chevrolet products right from the factory? Let's go ahead and find out. Right off the bat, what I love about this, it's red, just like my red 1985 C4 Corvette. Starting at the front of the business, you can see the style with the C4. Now remember, C4 started in 1984, and it was coming off of a generation of Corvette, the C3, which was the longest lasting. That went from 1967 all the way to 1982. Technically, there was no 1983 Corvette because when they came out with the C4, it was late. Too late to actually call it model year 1983. So technically, they made a few versions of the 83 C4, but none of them were titled, none of them were built for production. 84 is the first year of the C4. This is your style that they went to. Screams 1980s. I love it, and it reminds me of my own bright red C4 1985 Corvette. You can see you have your turn signals, your fog lamps down low. We have those classic flip up headlights. So they're not just like a pop-up, they actually flip upside down to illuminate the road in front of you. As you come across the front, you can see that this thing is all original. It even has all of the rock chips from its last race in 1988. And then you'll notice the badging is a little different. So you're gonna still get your cross flags, but it literally says Corvette Challenge with the Chevrolet bow tie there, and that makes it, like I said, one of 56 examples. Love how they took the graphics with the silver, kind of did like a half almost racing stripe with the Chevy bow tie. You got your Chevrolet badge across the top. That was something that all of the Corvette Challenge cars had. The Corvette Challenge badging, and then you would find your own sponsors, obviously, to get the business done on the racetrack. Now, I'm gonna have Lori kind of back up and drop down with me. Along the bottom, you'll notice an air dam that drops down, and they actually have holes cut in the bottom. Those are for brake cooling. That was something that was specifically done for the Corvette Challenge cars. Your standard Corvettes did have an air dam. That's why you had to be very careful whenever you would park in a parking lot, because a lot of people would rip those off. Interesting thing is people would sometimes leave them broken off. It's so important for cooling that your engine would actually overheat if you remove it and not put it back. Let's go ahead and talk around the corner here. So of course we have our clamshell opening hood, which we'll get to that in a second. Love all the logos from the sponsors, the Bilstein dampers and everything. This, of course, comes with the Z51 package that had those Bilstein dampers. And just like today, Z51 increases the handling. Back then, it's the same exact engine option. No extra horsepower, but handling-wise, it really got the business done. Now, there's those wheels I was telling you about, made by Dimag. They're magnesium wheels. They're lighter than the stock wheel. And I really love, especially back then, this screams 1988 when it comes to wheel style. You got the Corvette name there looking good. 17-inch wheel, 275 on the width, 40 series sidewall. You have the stock calipers, which you could change pads, but you had to run stock calipers. So this really was a class that, guess what? If you were gonna get beat, you weren't gonna get beat by a car that had more horsepower or better brakes. You were getting beat because the driver was better than you are. As we come down the side, when it comes to the early C4s, so from 1984 all the way to 1991, all C4s had this black trim that went around the whole vehicle. It says tune port injection. That's the L98 motor. Now, one little interesting fact is that L98 wasn't used on all early C4s. 1984 has the Crossfire injection engine, which I hate to say I'm glad that they got rid of, because the L98 tune port injection was the leapfrog to get us back to performance in a Corvette, because by 1982, the end of the C3, horsepower was not super duper important. I love the side vents. These are non-functional, but it ties it in with Corvette history and just very unique on the early C4s. They also changed that when they did a refresh in 91. Now, as we come down the side, you'll see this car has been driven by Bobby Archer. Bobby Archer, very accomplished race car driver, and that's like what I was saying. They tried to get race car drivers that had already a lot of championships. Now, what's interesting is that later, well after 1988, Bobby Archer really made a name for himself with another American sports car, the Dodge Viper. So it's kind of interesting to see Bobby Archer on a Chevrolet product, because when I was in college, Bobby Archer was racing Dodge Vipers and getting the business done. Now, as we come down the side, you can see that steel cage, roll cage that's been put in the car by Chevrolet engineers from the factory. And as we work, we're gonna come down. I'm gonna have Lori kind of take a few moments and just glide on back and showcase some of the beauty that a C4, just a really unique look. And I feel like the C4 generation just does not get enough love. But looking at the rear of the vehicle, I've always liked the way they kind of just curved underneath, very, very aerodynamic. Out back, you're gonna also have 275s. So 275s, all four corners, and those Dimag. See, I didn't lie. They're made by a company called Dimag. They're magnesium wheels, less rotating mass. You can see on the C4, the glass hatch, this would raise up. If you see the bright red in here, that's for obviously the racing harness. That cage is just amazing, how it ties in the rear strut tower braces, and then you have that crossbar. It even has the speaker grills in there for the Bose sound system that the C4 Corvette came with. We come around to the back. If you ever wondered on a C4, where do you put fuel? Are you like, hey, where's the fuel door? Check this out. It's actually right there. That's where you put your fuel in your C4. Just kind of cool to see things, because you don't see things like that anymore. You know, you look at new Corvettes, you look at new cars, everything's on the side. Nice to see that tied in. I personally love the tail end of the business, the classic quad round taillights. You got the Corvette badge there, looking really clean. And then you could see the exhaust that they were allowed to run, where they got rid of all the catalytic converters and all those goodies to kind of rob us of horsepower and performance. Obviously, because this is a race car, they let it run a little bit more free to let us hear that 5.7 liter. Speaking of the 5.7 liter, let's check out the L98 under the hood of our Corvette Challenge race car. All right, guys, we got that clamshell hood open. You can see how the headlights are situated, and they had functional headlights. Everything functioned on this car, even though it was used for the racetrack. One thing I want to point out is still in 1988, they were putting the badge down below where it showed Corvette and where it was built, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Guess what? Corvettes are still built in Bowling Green, Kentucky to this day. And underneath the hood is that L98 V8. So this is a 350 cubic inch tune port injected motor. One of my favorite things about this engine, even though it only produces about 235 horsepower, is guess what? Look at that beautiful intake plenum. Now this is all factory original. And remember, the teams were not allowed to crack these open. They were totally sealed, and they actually put certain markings on them to see if anybody was getting a little, sneaky, trying to do things to the inside the engine. If you're saying, well, Joe, what could you do? For example, this intake plenum, you could port and polish it. You could polish up all the little burrs and roughness on the inside to help with the airflow, which would generate more horsepower. You have the tune port injected badge right on that throttle body, which this is the stock throttle body. And if you're wondering, well, Joe, what type of speed are we looking at? 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds. Quarter mile, don't expect anything blatantly, that's just gonna blow your mind. You look at quarter mile around 14 seconds flat, but that's not where we were at in 1988. If you look at other cars during 1988, let's say a 1988 Lamborghini Countach, top speed on a C4 Corvette was actually higher than on a Lamborghini Countach. But why don't we go ahead, let's get to the interior and see what this Corvette Challenge race car is all about. All right, guys, we're inside this 1988 Corvette Grand Sport, like I said, with the L98 V8. You could see that roll cage part of it coming. And what's interesting is when you put a roll cage in, not only does it protect you in, God forbid, a racing accident, but it also stiffens up the whole chassis because of everything being connected. When you look at the door panel, you'll see those Bose Delco GM Bose speaker covers there. That is what came from the factory. The carpet on the door panel and the very simplistic door handles. Obviously, you look at newer generations of Corvettes, things have changed. Steering wheel, this is what you had back in 1988. No airbags yet, so your horn button was very, very small. It's got the Corvette Challenge badge there. And then this is your 4-speed manual transmission. So yes, not a 6-speed, not a 7-speed, not even a 5-speed. 4-speed is actually a 4+3. Top 3 gears have overdrive, but it's a 4-speed manual and all digital dash, which lit up like a 1980s video game. But overall, that one badge there really showcasing what this Corvette Challenge race car is all about. And that's what makes Mecum so special, is that you're gonna be able to get into cars like these. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's wrap this one up. All right, guys, it's been a wonderful time here at Mecum in Kissimmee. It really is an experience to come here. Even if you're not gonna bid on a car, especially if you're a car person, it's a car show. It's one big, massive car show, and all the other events going on, especially with the drive events that they could do for you here and whatnot, makes it extra special. Speaking of special, this Corvette Challenge race car, like I said, one of 56, so great to see it in its original form. I'm looking forward to watching it go across the auction block and see what it's gonna bring. It does have no reserve, so if you want one of these, this would be definitely one to bid on, because you know that there's no reserve on it. But really a special Chevrolet product that I think a lot of people just either have forgotten about or don't even know about. But if it's cars like these special cars that you could option from the factory as a race car, if you want to keep seeing that, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're new and you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Ladies Rise family. If you want to help us keep making great content just for you on the channel, click the link in the description. Get yourself some Ladies Rise merch. Got to give it up to the queen of the camera. She's out here. We got the crowds we're fighting. We got all different lighting situations and everything else. She's doing an awesome job. Let her know in the comment section. Thank you, Lori, for all that you do. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.